on the Takeover on Life FM for your Wednesday.
And as it's a Wednesday, we need this.
Wellness Wednesdays on the Takeover. Brought to you by station sponsor Kelli K Naturopath. Book your free intro call today at kellik.com.au.
Kelli joins us over Zoom tonight. Kelli K Naturopath, welcome back to the Takeover.
Thank you. Good to be back.
It's good to have you here tonight. We are looking at a very interesting discussion point, and it's something that's very topical, I think, at the moment, vaping. It's an interesting one.
Yes, yeah. It is quite interesting, and yes, very topical.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a few questions for you, Kelli, because as you said, vaping is such an interesting and a massive topic. And so the first question I want to ask is, what is vaping and why was it developed?
Yeah, well, vaping was developed as an alternative to traditional cigarette smoking, and initially believed that it would be better, that it might even help people to quit smoking. And it's really a device that allows for the inhalation and exhalation of aerosols, which contain a variety of different chemicals, including nicotine usually.
Right.
Okay.
And so, there's a lot of different people who use vapes, but who are, using vapes the most?
Yeah, so it's fairly concerning in that probably the younger population, ages between 15 and 24, are the most prevalent users, and that the percentage of people using them does seem to be increasing in Australia. So over the past few years, it has increased and become more popular.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, wow.
It's so scary that, the younger people are really getting into it. It's become a bit of a trend, hasn't it?
It has. And I was just going to say, you mentioned, Kelli, that it kind of can be seen as like an alternative to traditional cigarette smoking, or even a way to reduce smoking regular cigarettes. But as we've seen in, campaigns over the last year or so, we know that vaping isn't actually any better for us. In fact, it's probably the opposite. So, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And just on that, Maz, Kelli, we want to know what is in a vape? Because we know that they're not good, but I actually have no idea. What is in one?
Yeah, well, still most vapes will have the main ingredient being nicotine. You can buy vapes that are labelled nicotine-free, but on further testing, when some of the regulatory or the government bodies have tested them, a lot of them actually do still contain nicotine.
Wow.
And as we know, nicotine's a very addictive substance. But beyond that, there's a whole host of different chemicals, and some of them are really scary. So acetane is found in some, which is what we find in nail polish remover.
Wow.
There are chemicals that we would also find in insecticides and weed killer and bug sprays.
Goodness.
That's so
Also
scary.
phthalates, which we did mention last week when we were talking about environmental chemicals, phthalates that come from plastics as well. So and they're breathing all this in. As well as that, a lot of them are flavoured.
Yeah.
And those flavours, they're flavours that might be commonly used in food production, but normally they're ingested orally. When you're inhaling them into the lung, that can be a whole different story. So
wow.
There is hundreds of chemicals in them, and quite concerning as to what sort of impact that's going to have long term.
Yeah, because we are in a bit of a series at the moment for Wellness Wednesday where we're looking at chemical exposure, and so vaping was kind of the part 2 of that. Last fortnight we spoke about, different chemicals in the atmosphere and how we can maybe try and reduce our risk of being susceptible to those. But this is something that I think a lot of people are obviously choosing to partake in. So we're going to take a quick break, Kelli, but when we come back, we're going to be looking at why exactly experts are actually really concerned about vaping, because it has become a real topic of discussion. We've seen all of the government campaigns out there that Dr. Carl, the scientist, is doing, saying that vaping is actually really bad for us. And, there's a lot of money going into anti-vaping campaigns and that sort of thing. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll chat more about vaping with Kelli K Naturopath on Life FM. And we're joined by Kelli K Naturopath for Wellness Wednesday. Kelli, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
We're talking tonight about a topic that I think most people have been confronted by either firsthand or secondhand, or they've seen other people using these. It's vapes and vaping. That is what we're talking about tonight. And we were just chatting about, what vaping and a vape actually is, what it looks like, what it contains. But we want to ask, why are experts so concerned about vaping?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of reasons. Obviously, our health is a big concern. We know that it increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, also increases the risk of lung damage and lung issues, and it does contain so many of those toxic chemicals, some of which are carcinogenic, so means they might promote cancer in the body. Also, there's a lot of heavy metals in there that can be found in vapes as well. But I think the other big concern is that because of the way they're marketed and flavoured and all of that, it is really directed and quite appealing to young people. And because we haven't had that same long-term ongoing message of, as with cigarettes, it's like we know cigarettes are bad, we know smoking causes lung cancer, we haven't had those same messages coming through for vaping. And so young people can be disillusioned into thinking that vaping is a safer option, and that's a real concern.
And that kind of ties in really well with the last question that we were going to ask you, which is vaping better than smoking, which we've kind of touched on already. But Kelli, is it better than smoking or is it worse?
Well, at the end of the day, I don't know if it's worse, but it's definitely not that much better. If you look at the chemicals that are involved, both contain significant numbers of toxic chemicals. You're inhaling them directly into the lung. We know they're both connected with long-term significant health issues, and they're both very, very addictive, and they don't seem to help people quit smoking in a significant way. So, yeah, really, I would say both are bad. And we're probably just going to find out more and more about how bad vaping is in the coming years as more research comes out. So, I'm not a fan.
No, just very quickly, because I know we have to let you go and we have to get to our 8 o'clock hour, but if someone is struggling with vaping or that sort of an addiction, what would you recommend? Like, is there, something that they can try or something they can do to try and wean themselves off? I don't know. This is actually probably a big question for me to throw at you when we've got not much time left, but
it is. It's a really big question. Yeah, it's a really big question. The first thing I would do is probably go, if you're really addicted, go and talk to your GP.
Yeah.
They will have a bunch of resources and people that they'd be able to connect you with, organisations that would help people with addictions. That's probably the best place to start.
Yeah.
Or some of those helplines as well, things like Lifelines or even the Quit line will be able to assist you. If they can't assist you, they'll be able to direct you to the people
who can,
or organisation who can.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, maybe we'll look into it as well a little bit later down the track, like addictions and maybe some of the more the things that we can maybe do to overcome those addictions and things a little bit more in more depth at another stage. But Kelli K Naturopath, thank you so much for joining us tonight and chatting about this topic. It's something that's very prevalent in society, particularly amongst young people, and we really appreciate you taking your time to speak with us.
Wellness Wednesdays on The Takeover, brought to you by station sponsor Kelli K Naturopath. Book your free intro call today at kellik.com.au.